And the Ministry of Education has been challenged to provide a clear roadmap for the scheduled reopening of schools in January 2021. Ugunja Member of Parliament Opiyo Wandayi says parents want clarity on how the ministry is preparing learning institutions in readiness for the planned reopening.
Ministry of Education on Thursday made a pronouncement that saw learning in the country's tertiary institutions defer to January 2021. Magoha citing lack of compliance with the COVID-19 protocols by learning institutions in the country amid rising cases of the virus. But while the academic calendar 2020 stands lost, questions are now emerging on steps being taken by the government to ensure compliance by January 2021 to avoid further postponement of the school calendar.
When the COVID-19 pandemic was declared in mid-March, schools were abruptly closed, or in fact all education institutions. And the indications we got that time was that perhaps the schools would reopen in second term, which was supposed to be early May. Come early May, we were made to understand that now, no, it looks like we need to take some more time to assess the situation. And therefore, indication was given of, say, March or of June, which never happened. Come June, we were told about September, which never happened. Now here we are being told about January. There is no harm. There's nothing wrong with telling us schools will reopen, say, even next year in March or in April or even August next year. But you must convince the country that in the intervening period, what steps are you taking as a ministry, as a government, in terms of preparedness of these institutions?
Ugunja Member of Parliament Opiyo Wandayi says while reopening of schools has been postponed severally since March, little has been said on what the government is doing to ensure schools, especially public institutions that often have high numbers, are doing to ensure that existing challenges on social and physical distancing are addressed.
We look back and say that from March the 13th, when the first case of COVID-19 was announced, up to now, we have done this and this and this in terms of preparing our institutions of learning for reopening. If there is, I haven't heard. Or this preparedness was supposed to happen on its own, through some magic. It must be guided, and it also requires money. We need to know how much money has been disbursed. Because again, the country can't sit like this forever, in this set of suspense, forever. So it requires leadership. I have no problem with saying open in January, but please convince the country that you are taking measures to prepare for that reopening.
The legislator, who is also the National Assembly Public Accounts Committee chair, urging the government to come up with a clear policy that will address the plight of private schools whose operations have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Wandayi is saying whereas it is commendable the move by the Ministry of Education to address the plight of teachers employed by the boards of management and other staff in public schools, there was need to extend the same to those in private institutions.
I haven't heard of anything to do with private institutions or private schools. It is assumed, and wrongly so, that private schools are a preserve of the well-to-do, of the children of those who have money. Far from it. Even in our locality here of Ugunja, we have got private schools right from the kindergarten to class 8, which are populated by children of fairly poor people. Okay? So the role that these private schools is playing, the role that the private schools are playing, can no longer be underrated. And therefore, if you are trying to address the issues of the teachers, the workers in public schools, you must also look at the possibility of developing some package, okay? Some package to sustain or to protect these institutions, these private institutions, from eventually dying.
Caroline Kamar reporting for Channel 1 News.